On today's Kelly and Company edition, Sheila Grieve is a professor at Vancouver Island University, specializing in early childhood education and care. We're going to learn more about how to support our young ones through Sheila's years of experience. Plus, stick around for a throwback, flipping through quirky stories from around the globe with Nisreen Abdel-Majid on what in the world as it makes its triumphant return to the program. It's mind-blowing. Long-time listeners thought I was going to say mind-boggling, didn't you? Fooled ya!
This is Kelly and Company.
All right, Rumya, I know you're going to suggest that this mind-boggling thing has
Yes.
got to end sooner or later because
Uh-huh.
we have worked it for, let's see, carry the 6, 7. I would say probably, what,
8
3
plus
years?
years. Oh, okay. I just went straight to rounding out how long I've been at AMI, but
Yeah, you sound like
no,
Tim
3 is
Hortons taking my
absolutely an
money.
understatement. That's way too low.
Is it?
Yeah.
Mind-boggling. That was a mistake Rumya said one day just as a reaction, and Rumya has never been able to let it go. Grant Hardy had a great time with it anytime he was hosting, even when he
It's
picked
lived
it up.
on and on
It's
and on
just been on and on
and
and on.
on and
Jeff
on.
Ryman, my good heavens, that guy, he just loved it.
You know what it is? It's one of those things there I didn't think anything of it. Obviously, you're on air. There's no post reaction or take that out, please. And after it happened, somebody thought it would be a nice idea to clip it, put it in an intro doorbell thing, and later on it just became an absolute meme. So,
I
what did you
need to
say? Did you
hear
guarantee that it was dying?
this.
You need to hear it. Haven't
I
you
need to
already?
hear it. I've never heard of this clip.
I didn't think that there was
Where's
anybody in
the
the world
step?
who hasn't heard of this mind-boggling situation yet.
It's
I
on one of
need to
the
locate it.
doorbells, right? It was on was it the last doorbell that we had
Yes,
before on
it was
as
on the
Kelly and
Yeah.
Rumya
doorbell.
when we had What in the World? So you'd have to go
Mhm.
find that somewhere and dig that up, which I think it's well, Nisreen, you have the magic fingers today. You're a technical producer. You have
You
access.
would find it.
Break into
You'll
the
find it
vault.
somewhere.
I can make it happen.
Yeah, break
Yeah.
into the AMI audio vault. It's kicking around somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Mind-boggling.
have to
Just
read
sort of like
right,
that.
exactly. Yeah. It's just the way in which it was said.
Nisreen, how are you
Look,
today?
pretty good. How are you?
Good, but would you find something like that flattering? If you said something and it just haunted you through your programming
Seriously?
years for the next dozen years?
Oh,
I
yeah, when you
wouldn't
put it
find
that
it
way.
flattering. I would be embarrassed. I mean,
Okay.
not for I wouldn't say for you, Rams,
What,
but
to
I've
be
I've
on this
said so
show
many
or
things. No. No, I've said many things. I know what you mean, Rams. Like I feel like I've said
Mhm.
many things that I mistakenly said on air, and I
Oh.
can't
On
take
air?
back because
Okay.
yeah, it's done. It's been on air, and you can't remove it. So,
We have
I've
too
had my
many
fair
live
share
shows.
moments. Yeah,
That's the lesson there.
yeah.
We need a lot more pre-taped shows where we can say, "Producer, please take that out."
And then
And
you'll
then
hear
So
Mark
the
click
thing
down
is,
and just, "Ha, ha, 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 sure."
yeah.
like, no.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the host could at least say, "Yeah, Mark, clip that, please," and it just gets sucked up and utilized later on in,
Mhm.
infinite places. Like, it just never leaves you. It haunts you forever. But many would consider it, guys, flattering. Like, let's be fair, we're in that venue where we can sit here and say, "Oh, it's annoying." And yeah, okay, I mean, after 8 years, as Rumya put it, really, maybe 5. But the
Mhm.
reality is, a lot of people would think, "Oh, that's cool. Did you hear me there say that? They threw that in as a little sound bite." Like, Roz and Mocha, Ramya, you're fans
Oh,
of
yeah,
that show. Would
yeah.
they not love
They're
they would do it to
sample.
you. If you worked with them, oh my good heavens, half
Well,
your
they
dialogue
embarrass
would be
themselves and
clipped.
each other all the time. Actually, it's so funny you bring that up because Mocha, who is on the soundboard, doing the tech side of things as well, has a full, I think, a 10-minute reel of strange noises that Roz has made over the years of being on the show, and he just played it back to back to back one recent episode. It was super funny.
So
And
hold it.
no,
You better
the answer is it
quantify.
was
What do
not
you mean?
flattering for
What do
Roz.
you mean? Noises. Noises are a little different than squeaky voiced mind-boggling.
Anything, just things he said, phrases,
Okay.
that made people uncomfortable, noises like, the thinking noises we make and contemplating
Boop,
noises.
boop, boop. Like stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yes,
Hmm,
yes, yes, you got it.
okay. All right. All right.
And
Well,
I think to answer your question, no, it was not flattering.
Okay, so maybe Nisreen, now that she's heard all this, taken it all in, sucked it up like a vacuum, will later come out with a poll. We have poll results we'll be talking about a little later on in the show. Maybe something like this. Would you be flattered? Would you not if something you said was utilized? I don't know. We'll figure that out. Maybe today or tomorrow we'll roll that out and see what kind of response if we throw it out on the poll. But I know someone else who can probably relate to what we're talking about as we bring on our first guest today, writer
Mhm.
and journalist Graham Isador is joining us. He has a degenerative eye disease, and it started to impact his day to day and his work prospects. Ooh, that is something I think a lot of us can relate to. He has been looking for the best way to talk about it. His new podcast, Short Sighted, from CBC's Personally, is an attempt to explain what vision loss feels like by exploring how it sounds. What a concept. So, Graham, people don't think first off that you're losing your sight. They just basically think you're an a-hole with resting blind face. Graham, welcome to the show, buddy. Nice to have you with us.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Really appreciate it. But you got to define because, well, Rumya sometimes when distracted, I'm told by people, Rum, can you smile a little bit because she gets what she
My
classifies in a
mother.
certain way.
Just call her out.
Yeah.
It's my
Yeah,
mother.
okay, call your mom out. All right. I call it a nice thinking face, but I know there's another reference similar to
RBF.
the resting blind face. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. We on a family show have to be careful. What is
Sure.
resting blind face, Graham?
Yeah, that was a term that my friend Erica has used for me for quite a long time. Where the assumption is not that I'm trying to see what's going on. The assumption is that I hate absolutely everything that I'm witnessing in front of me. So yeah,
Oh.
like Erica had said that a lot of the time when like she had to make excuses for me to friends or people who don't know me or people who have kind of been around, being like, okay, he's having a good time. We trust us. Like he's really enjoying himself here, but he's never really gonna look like it. So most of the time I was just, trying to take in my surroundings and then figure out what's happening. And the assumption was that I was not enjoying myself at all.
Amuthan, can you relate to this?
Yes. Yeah, of course. Especially for people who are low vision. I can relate because you're either straining your eyes to see things or straining your face to look like you have a normal face on. I'm not sure what it is. It's maybe the normalizing of you got to look like a sighted person, even if you don't necessarily process things visually or visually look like a sighted person. But there's something going on there, right? Like there's this disconnect. But it's interesting to kind
Um,
of put it out there that way, Graham,
yeah.
the
Well,
way your
it
friend
is
has.
too, Graham. 'Cause I was always told, kids would say to me, "Why are your eyes rolling? Why are you moving your head?" And what are you talking about? I don't do that. Were you
Hmm.
very aware, all your life that you kind of had that kind of look? Or how old were you when people first like felt comfortable to say, "Man, what are you doing? Why do you have that pinched face?"
Yeah, so like with keratoconus, like it's been a degenerative thing since I was about like 13. And I'm not legally blind, but my vision has like kind of degraded in the last couple of years where it's changed a lot of
Hmm.
um just how I interact with the world and time to time. But yeah, this is something that has kind of started in my 20s, like pretty early, where I was just like, you know, I think a lot of the time the reason this happens is because the default for people is assuming that like unless there's a white cane around or a dog or something that they traditionally like associate with vision loss, that they don't necessarily know that it's happening. So the jump to the assumption is that like that I'm not um just like dealing with vision stuff at that point, is that like I'm
Right.
just being a
Not
jerk.
having a good time. You're
But
not
yeah,
having a
it's
good
like
time.
Yeah.
yeah, and
Oh
like
man.
it's the assumption in some ways too, where it was just that like I was just like, okay, well, why can't you just fix this with contacts, or why can't you just fix this with like glasses or something? Then like what's going on at all this point? So yeah, it's something
Mhm.
that's kind of been put on me for a while, and I think in some ways too, as a person who has been a critic at various points in my life, professionally and unprofessionally at times, between music and theater and movies and stuff too. Like the jumping on point of that for is like, okay, well, he's always must be judging in one way or another.
It just goes along with his look. Sorry, go ahead, Rum.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say a lot of misunderstanding this away, but I guess one of the biggest points here is, and you have a podcast, so clearly you get the point, is to talk about it, normalize it, desensitize others and ourselves to the conversations. Would you say that's accurate?
Totally. I think it's just like, I started talking about it basically because I was tired of people talking about it for me. Like people would make
Mhm.
assumptions
Yes.
about kind of like what was going on with my life, or the way that I interacted with things, because they didn't know what was going on with my vision. So, like a lot of the things that were just uh, challenges for me, whether that's like taking a little bit longer to figure out how to fill out forms, or whether that was, not being able to drive or something, was attributed to the idea that I'm like lazy, or have like a snooty personality, or,
Mm.
wasn't working hard enough with things, when the reality was kind of a lot different. So, it got to the point where I was like, I felt like I needed to be able to kind of talk for myself in this way, and like to be able to, explain it to other people. And I didn't always know how to do that. And
Mhm.
because, I'm a little bit of a show off, and have a background in theater and media and stuff, it was just like, well, why not make a 5-part memoir podcast from this? To do
Hmm.
this rather
Wow.
than just, have conversations with all of my friends and family.
You host it
And
and do it really well too.
yeah.
I find that really wonderful, because I've had friends, we've gone for auditions, and I walk around, I carry my cane, I'm comfortable with it. If I do an audition, I walk up, put the cane down, do the audition, where I've had friends who are higher vision and go up without the cane, go right into their role. And of course, our eyes, the pinch face, like you're talking, like kind of that kind of, I'm not happy to be here, or even just the wandering. The last thing people think of is you have a vision impairment. They're more likely to think you're loaded up on something or high on something. So that has created, for some of them, more questioning. Where when you come out there, put the cane down. In my case, for me, that spoke for me. They were able to concentrate on what I was doing with my audition. And hey, am I fooling myself thinking, oh, they forgot all about the blindness? No. And besides, you pick up the cane and leave if you can find it while you're feeling around on the floor for it. Rum?
Yeah, I think that what's interesting is this already comes from that place of, oh my goodness, I'm frustrated, right? I'm frustrated on like the micro, which is people and the way that they think of me, or the way that I feel I'm presenting myself to people, and there's a huge discrepancies there. And then the macro, which is just what is going on in society, that we're still kind of pushing narratives around invisible disabilities and all the different
Mhm.
stigmas that come with that. And why can't we just have genuine conversations? But do you think, or maybe let me ask you this way, how do you think your podcast helps fill that gap?
I mean, for me, it was like the opportunity to be able to talk more about it with other people too, and having the context to go and talk to like blind and low vision creators, and different friends who'd experienced vision loss, in a kind of open and honest way, because we all kind of knew the context for what was going on.
Hmm.
Was really helpful to me. I mean, like when this first started, I felt very isolated and really alone with it, and my reaction a lot of the time was to just try to like bootstrap my way up to like quote unquote normal, like
Right.
to like what the sighted people's expectations were, rather than kind of like being like, all right, well, my vision is changing, and the surgeries that we've tried, and the methods that we've tried to be able to like get me to a place where my vision is a little more stable, haven't taken at this point. But like I didn't really know very many people who were kind of going through that experience.
Yeah.
And yeah, the opportunity to be able to talk about it with more people, and then kind of realize that like to have a shorthand and common ground, to talk about this was so meaningful to me, just because like the way that it's been presented in media, or the way that um, other stories have been told about it, often haven't been from people with lived experience, so like the opportunity to kind of go in and talk about my experience with other people, and then hopefully kind of create something that, if you're a sighted person, you're a person without access needs, that like you're gonna have a different experience into like what this process is like, or
Hmm.
what this like lived experience is like. And then if you're a person who does have similar life experience, then like, yeah, hopefully you can kind of recognize yourself in it too. So it was all those things, kind of just like having the permission to talk about it and like really being able to dig in openly and honestly with it, just kind of made me feel, yeah, it was a process that made me feel a lot more connected and just a lot more experience with these things. And then also like the knowledge that like, because I've been lucky enough to have platforms with CBC or Vice where I
Yeah.
used to work, or the Globe and Mail, that like, all right, well, if I've gotten to talk about my own experience here, how am I also trying to figure out how to champion other people, and like and put
Right.
them at
It's
the
the outreach. The
Yep.
platforms
yeah,
give you the outreach, definitely.
And we're
yeah.
fortunate to have that, really. Like, I mean, in your first episode, you talk about the experience auditioning. And again, this goes to auditioning for shows, plays, whatever, music related. Yours happened to be with what was to be the breakfast television out of Montreal. Can you sum that up
Mhm.
quickly and just give people a bit of an idea what happened?
Yeah, so I got headhunted to be one of the hosts for breakfast television in Montreal, or to audition for it. That kind of came through the work that I was doing at Vice at the time. I worked at Vice, which was a youth-oriented media company, as a contributing editor over there. And the producer's idea for breakfast television in Montreal was like, hey, we're going to take our normal BT and we're going to take it in this kind of like bold, new, edgy direction. We really want your like viciest, biggest ideas, at 6 o'clock in the morning for your news commuters who are coming in. So
Mhm.
it was this, a big throw for them to try to figure out how to do this. And when they brought me on to audition, I was really excited because I was still working freelance at the time, so I needed a job pretty desperately. And then also, yeah, I was like, being a news anchor seemed like a really interesting and amazing career path in a lot of ways. But there was a knowledge that like, even at that point with my vision, that like I don't see well enough to be able to read a teleprompter. And I don't see well enough to be able to use like the big kind of a lot of the like interactive green screen kind of boards that they use, that they'd either use for like weather, or they use like interactive on TV. Is just like, it's not that like, those things don't feel accessible to me in a way that's going to be seamless, and so I let them know that from jump. Like, I explained to them that that was going to be something that I wasn't going to be able to deal with, but like, they were like, hey, that's we'll figure out how to make accommodations for you. That's not going to be a problem. And I was really excited by that. So we didn't really talk about it too much more. It got mentioned kind of once or twice that like a teleprompter wasn't going to be a part of what I could do, but hey, I
Mhm.
can make charming banter with the co-host, and I can and talk about news and weather as with the best of them. I'm sure it'll turn out
You
fine.
bet. Yeah.
And we finally got to the point where it was like the screen test and the audition, and they were like, okay, during this process, like, there's a quote from the premiere, like, during your full segment, and we'll just have you kind of read that from the TV over there. And the TV was big, and they had made the font huge, for them, which was their olive branch. They're like, hey, this is what we did, this is the accommodations that we did. And I was just like, well, that's not really how it works with my eyesight. And like, nobody, I don't think that anybody at that point was trying to be like ableist or mean or difficult or anything like that. But because like my vision doesn't exist in blindness, and their like traditional um viewpoint of like what low vision or vision loss is, they were just like, okay,
Mhm.
well, he can see a lot, right, relative to other people, and so big font's going to be great. And it was just that's not how the case was. So I did
Yeah.
the banter with the co-host and tried my best to kind of stumble through it, and it just was, like, I was not, there's all sorts of words that I would not use on a family friendly program to describe kind of like how things went at that point, but it didn't go very well. And so, yeah, that experience, like, like, I didn't get the job. Um, and breakfast television in Montreal stopped existing kind of pretty shortly thereafter. So there wasn't going to be a job to get anyways. But yeah, like, that's kind of the Coles Note version of what happened. And it was this realization that at that point where like, oh, this was now, my vision was going to be something that was going to, I'd known that it had changed a lot, but I didn't really realize how it was going to impact me, or impact like different possibilities for me, and had to start thinking about it a little bit differently afterwards.
Mhm. So what other things for you, like you said, afterward had to think differently and for the future? where are you at this point? You certainly won't have all answers. None of us do. And I know as my vision has changed and through life, even though I've known since I was a little boy, oh, eventually you're going to go totally blind. And now I'm on
Yeah.
that doorstep. So, but you can only be so ready. And I can only be so thankful that I've learned what I've learned over the years. Where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think a lot of it was just like there had been a surgery that I had tried and it didn't take, and I lost a little bit more of my vision when I did the last time. They were like, "Hey, you can go back and do that again." And understandably, I was pretty trepidatious to be able to kind of go and try to figure that out. And the hope is
Yeah.
that that would stabilize my vision in a different way rather than kind of continuing to deteriorate. And so, yeah, it's just like that's not, like trying to figure out where I'm at with that has been one aspect of what's going on. But another thing too has just been like, all right, well, you know, if I'm able to talk about this in a more forthright manner, and if I'm able to like get a little bit more confident in asking for what I need in work positions to be able to succeed in a lot of different ways. Whether that's formatting, whether that's figuring out that like making sure that something can use like speech to text, or text to speech when my eyes are too tired, whether that's stuff that I can making sure I got formats where I can adjust screens to be able to do what I need to do. All of that was something that like I think I was very sheepish about asking for at different points in my life, and just like I felt a little shy and a little embarrassed with it, and like this kind of internalized
Mm.
notion of ableism that like really was prevalent in my life for a long time, and figuring out how to like talk about it more and being more forthright about my experience, and then also like with the writing that I do, at various different publications, like also trying to champion other people who have access needs and their stories. Like it's just made me um a better advocate for myself and hopefully for others in that way, to be able to kind of get what I need and ask for it.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think that like we can I think people can get very like cynical about the notions of representation, or the idea that it all just has to be like rah inspiration or sad, or that like we're only telling these stories a lot of time. But like when you allow people who have access needs to be able to like tell their own stories, or you give them platforms to be able to kind of champion what they do, it's really interesting the nuances and like the understanding that you can kind of get out there. So yeah, like a programs like what you guys do, like hopefully, to some extent what I'm doing too is just like it's amazing how much more they've mattered to me in the last couple of years. And yeah, I hope that something like my work can do a similar thing for other people.
100%. And we've always said on here, Ramya, that we don't do disability 24 hours all the time. It's not
Yeah.
that we want to give a very fair representation. We want to have people like yourself come on and speak. We want to share our own lives, but we understand this is day to day, and there's so much more, especially yourself as an actor. You don't want to be rolled out to play the vision impaired person. You don't want to always have to write. And I think you've got a wonderful balance that you've got there that is perfect, but also right now helping yourself through that walk through life and assisting at this point as other tools will. Graham, thanks for
Mm.
making time for us today.
Yeah, I really love this program. I'm excited to be able to chat with everybody.
Well, thanks for the podcast. Thanks for the promotion you've done with us on social media. It's been wonderful, getting to know you that way through the years. And good luck with things. And you're welcome back here anytime.
Yeah, there's so much more I want to talk about. So I want I'm going to take you guys up on that, and
Please
we'll be
do.
chatting soon.
Yeah, man. Thank
Okay,
you
thanks
very much.
everybody.
Take care, pal. Graham
Thanks.
Isador joining us on the program. What a pleasure to have him on the show. A true master storyteller. Do check out the podcast. And that podcast, it resonates with a bunch of people out there, certainly those of us in the low vision and blind
Hmm.
community. You can check out the podcast. It's a short part series, short sighted, and it's on CBC's Personally, drops on Tuesdays, hosted by Graham Isador. With the first episode came out on the 19th. They're about to do episode 3 as it will drop next week. Please catch up when you can. Okay, ladies, let's have a chat. Nisreen, you've been listening in. Your thoughts? What do you feel? What would you concur with Graham that may relate to your world?
I think it's pretty amazing. I find it amazing that we can find a creative way to not only spread the awareness, but to make people understand what it what it really is. Because I understand how hard it is to explain what I have, what my
Mm,
vision loss is, how it all works, and I get the endless amount of questions. Oh, why can't you just get glasses? Don't you have
Hmm.
glasses?
Yep.
Um, so it's not as
very
simple as
relatable.
that. And I feel like a lot of people, yeah, it can be fixed automatically to some people that that's what they think. So it's much
Yeah.
more than that. And I think to have a podcast and talk about it and talk about the details and really share people's insights of what they're going through, like, can resonate with a lot of people, and that's what I love.
Hmm.
I love
And the
how,
Honestly,
individual,
like,
right?
yeah.
yeah, and the stories, like, you often sometimes, like, we get either jaded and think like people aren't listening anymore, or the other part of it, at least for me personally, is like, yeah, I've gone through it, everyone's gone through it, you start feeling like it's a common story or a common
Yes.
conversation, especially because we do it every day, right, guys? Like, we talk about
Hmm.
disability, we talk about we freely share our own experiences because we're at stages in life that we feel comfortable doing so. But we have to often just pull back and remember, people are going through changes and discoveries and realizations and diagnoses and non-diagnoses and grieving,
Hmm.
and adjustments, like, every single
Hmm.
day. You're
And we can't be pushy. We have to be
optometrists.
patient with them too, right? Like, and supportive.
Exactly. Exactly. And just the same way, like, the professionals, the optometrists and ophthalmologists are having difficult conversations with people every day and telling them that, something is different, something is changing. We have to understand that our stories might impact people that way as well. It's kind of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a pulling the curtain and feeling that
Nazreen
way.
made me giggle here because she mentioned, the whole, hey, get glasses and you'll be able to see. I remember, try growing up as a really little guy in the late 70s when the $6 Million Man was on and people kept saying, can't you get a bionic eye like Steve
Oh
Austin?
my.
It's fictional. It's television. Get out of
I
here.
wish.
Okay. Nazreen, you've got some social media things that we should really get to, polls we should kind of discuss and remind people how to follow.
Yeah, so we posted two Twitter polls this week, and I want to share both of them since we have the time. On Monday, we posted one asking you guys, do you plan on attending a Christmas parade this year? And
Oh.
60%, so the options were yes, I never miss it. Maybe if I don't freeze to death. No, I'll watch at home, and not interested. So we got 60% of people saying, no, I'll be watching it at home. And 40% said, not interested. So I'm wondering, did we all of a sudden become introverts? Because I remember Christmas parades were a big deal.
I
Um,
think you're
a lot
cold
of,
wimps. That's what it is. We're scared of the cold,
yeah,
maybe
we
the
are.
crowd, and your hot chocolate freezing
Yeah,
together.
Mm.
I don't like the cold myself, so I understand. I would watch it at home. I mean, if I'm close
Hot
by,
chocolate
maybe I
is
could.
gross, Niz, too, when it's cold because it almost feels
Yeah.
like
But
it's
now there's, like,
starting
the
to
frozen
freeze.
hot chocolates. So
What?
Oh,
sometimes you
really?
think.
Is
But at
it like
least
a
that's
Yeah,
slushy
supposed to
version?
be.
yeah, like, oh, who does a good one? Aroma Express does a really
Yeah.
good cold hot chocolate.
I need to try that. Cold
Yeah.
Yeah,
hot
I think
chocolate.
when it's meant to
Interesting.
Well,
be,
it's cold.
it's great, I would
Yeah.
imagine. Like almost like a hot chocolate or a chocolate popsicle. Maybe
I
not
was
frozen.
Ooh.
Kelly, we're in sync, man. Because when I was a kid, I would get those cheap, chocolate popsicles. I don't know what
Oh, yeah.
brand it was or anything, but we would
No,
get
no,
them
they
for
were the
like 50,
fudgy ones. They were
75 cents. Yeah.
with the 2 sticks
Yeah.
on them, right? Yeah.
Oh,
Exactly, and then we just put it in a cup, my brother and I just smash it until it became
Oh,
like a
yeah.
slushy
Yep.
mess, and we
I
would
like
drink it.
breaking them apart and away we'd
Yep,
go. Oh, yeah. I'd do that with Freezies, though. I'd squeeze
that's
them
right,
till the
yeah.
suckers melted enough
We
so
thought
I
we
could
were
just drink
so
it.
epic.
Oh,
so
yeah,
We thought
you
we
and
were
look what I
smash the
geniuses.
created.
popsicles and just drink it?
We would make them into like a slushy drink and then take a straw and drink it,
Now,
and that's
you
What's the
also have
point
essentially
to
of
what
having
remember,
a
Freeze
Niz,
is.
popsicle then?
but you have to remember, Niz, her family, the way they would do things is overkill. So I'd have to ask the question, how many popsicles
Um,
did you try to like, oh,
creative
I have to
genius, more
make sure it
like.
melts? Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
6
I have to
popsicles
agree.
squashed into 1 cup. Niz, what else about polls? We did
Oh,
another
yes.
one.
So yesterday we posted what's your go-to breakfast choice, and I was so jealous I missed that conversation. By the way,
It was great.
it was honestly so great, and the options were eggs and toast, pancakes or waffles, cereal or oatmeal, or just coffee, please. And
Oh,
the results were 33% said eggs and toast, 33% said cereal or oatmeal, and 34% said just coffee, please. And I'm with them, just coffee,
yep.
please. That's my breakfast.
Yeah.
I know it's horrible.
Mhm.
I'm not a
You
good
see,
influence.
I went for the cereal one because it sounds good. I mean, if you say, "What is your preference? What would you like to eat all the time?" Maybe French toast or pancakes, maybe, but I would kill it. I'd end up getting fed up. But the daily go-to is definitely cereal. A couple of types, though. I like
Mhm.
mixing, a couple of cereals and throwing in some raisins or something like that. I love that.
Ew.
Oh,
No,
whoa. Come
no.
on.
Let's not push
It's
it with
rude.
Oh,
That's why
okay.
we
Oh,
didn't even put
back
sorry.
raisins
up,
on the poll
Sorry, I
back
anyway.
meant to say
up.
I meant to say fudgicles. I meant to say fudgicles. I like to throw
Thank
in some
you.
fudgicles.
No, these are great options. Like I know when I'm out for breakfast, I get pancakes for sure. But when I'm at
Mhm.
home, I just drink coffee and that's just enough for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can participate in these Twitter polls and message us on Twitter and Instagram at Kelly and Co AMI. Follow us, message us, communicate with us. We're interested. If you missed a previous episode, you could also go on any podcast platform or YouTube and subscribe to us there.
Okay. Thanks, Nisreen.
Cool.
We'll be back shortly when we get into a conversation of what in the world before the show wraps up. Rum?
Yeah, but for now, let's talk to another guest, please. And we want to kind of throw back to the times when people used to go outdoors, especially children's. Something that children used to do, definitely me and my brothers, and probably you as well, Kels. But
Hmm.
no longer are the times when moms are booting kids out into the wild and
Exactly.
saying, "Don't come back home until dinner time, please." But anyways, Sheila Grieve is a professor at Vancouver Island University in Nanaimo, BC, and she specializes in early childhood education and care. She's here with us now because we want to learn how to support our young ones. And through her 40 years of experience in this field, she will be able to give us a lot more insight on this. She's also part of the blind and low vision community. And Sheila Grieve's research is informed by her Métis Cree and Scottish ancestry and involves a combination of early childhood development and ec- ethnobotany. This is the first time I've heard of this word, so I'm looking forward to hearing more about that, Sheila. But she's also partnered with early childhood care and various education settings, and she adds culturally relevant plants to the outdoor classroom of each setting. She's obviously very passionate about enriching the field of ECE with the particular form of or focus of nature interaction. Sheila, it's so nice to have you on the show. And there's so much interesting stuff we can get to just based on the introduction. How are you?
Thrilled to be here.
Thank you. Glad to hear it. So, can you please, first of
Yeah,
all, tell
especially
us
since
what?
we made you wait so long.
I don't
Yes.
mind waiting.
Thank you for your
She's
patience.
Fabulous.
listening
I watched your
intently.
show, so
Thank you. Well, tell us what ethnobotany is. Was that the word?
yes, that is the word. So when you think about it, let's break that into two parts, ethno and botany. What does botany make you think of?
Flowers, plants,
Mhm.
Plants,
nature,
exactly.
Yep. Yep.
Ethno, what does ethno make you think of?
The
culturally relevant.
Yeah,
Culture.
that's kind of what I think. Yeah, really.
So it's looking at plants and culture and children and really thinking about how do we support a child growing within their own culture, within themselves, because children are not isolated. They're part of a family, they're part of a
Mm.
community. And so how do plants work into all of that? And I really believe what the elders teach us that um, in times of trouble, go to the trees, go to the rocks, and they will
Mm.
bring you comfort.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
And there is that connection that we feel naturally, obviously, with the earth, with them, but also similarities in really, young plants, young trees to us.
yes, And when you mention that how we feel connected, children are
Yeah.
born with a strong connection to the land. It's innate in them. Think about that child that you've held that's been crying, and you know that they're not hungry because you fed them. You know that they don't need a diaper change.
Right.
You know that you've done everything you can to meet their needs, and you take them outside and they just suddenly calm down. They feel a breeze on their face. Maybe they feel the chilly weather, depending on where you are in Canada right now.
Yes.
But
Mm.
they have that chance to feel the changes and the differences, and really notice things. And that brings them happiness. It brings
Is
them
that,
joy in
Sheila,
their.
because is it because they're not already filled with all the other things going on, the mechanical world, the other things that bog so much of us down as we get older, the realizations of this, money, lack of, do you feel that's where that connection with earth is able to make its way or be a much more firm, solid connection that they can feel?
It could be that's a part of it, because young children, like when children are born, children are a gift. Every child is a gift,
Mhm.
Exactly.
and
Mhm.
every child brings a gift, right? So two different versions of gifts here. One, the child themselves is a gift, and the other, they have a gift in themselves. And as adults, it's our job to find that gift. And so in those early years as adults, it's really important that we observe children carefully, and we see what their strengths are, and
Mhm.
we see
Yes.
what their gift is that they're bringing. And so part of that, because this is a special time in their life, you're right, they're not bogged down by having to make a living, or by those different things that can stop us from maintaining our feeling of connection to the outdoors, to
Yeah.
the earth.
The simplicity, I always felt, and I'm thinking back to being a child and just the littlest things and plants, everything like that, it just spoke louder to me. Sheila, give us a bit of context on early childhood education is and care.
So early childhood education and care can't be separated. They're intertwined, right? Learning
Right.
happens through the caregiving that we have with children. If we're not doing a good job taking care of their needs, they're not in that space to learn. So you can't really separate those two. But essentially, early childhood education and care is a space where young children play and learn together, and it's planned, it's guided by qualified educators. It's a space that children attend on a regular basis, and it could be a child care center, a preschool or pre-kindergarten, an Aboriginal Head Start. There's a wide variety of early childhood education and care settings across Canada.
That's
Do
incredible.
you
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think, Sheila, the conversations are getting more and more complicated to, um, I guess, on a political level or a social level or just the day to day because of changes in technology and diversity in geography, like where people live and the types of interactions depending on where you live. Like even something like you live in a condo versus a house with a backyard and being able to garden or having or not having a balcony. Like, what are some of the ways that you think the conversations are getting complicated or challenging? And does tackling it ever feel like very exhausting?
So, first of all, that's a great question. And it's a big question. We could spend
It is.
Mm.
tons
Yeah.
of time on it. It's huge. Um, so, I think that it's becoming more complex in that right now we're in a more risk averse society. We're scared that our children might get hurt,
Right.
right? Even as adults, we
Yeah.
go, "Oh, I used to do that as a kid, but I don't let my child do that," right? We have more fears.
Yeah.
Um,
Even as adults,
Well,
like
mhm.
growing
and
up in
people
these
do a
types of
lot of
environments.
I mean, you share things that you could do as a child where maybe you were left a little more to your devices and expected to, at 6 years old, be or 8 years old, be a little more responsible. than you would
Mhm.
be now, even at 11 years old, where parents may feel more, oh, if I do that, someone, they're going to say, what are you doing letting an 11-year-old do that? Whereas when I was a kid, there were things that, now I stop and say, we would never allow that. We'd be
Mhm.
fearful of it. Sheila, we'd be scared.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that we're fearful of, and sometimes it's an unfounded fear. Sometimes
Right.
it's a real fear. You might be in a neighborhood where there's a lot of needles that are left out in the parks,
Sure.
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
don't want your child to get a needle poke from a used needle. But we also have a lot more addictions to electronic devices. And so when we as adults have those addictions, we we tend to give electronic devices to children and allow them to spend more time. And so we also as adults, we're the ones that can kind of make those decisions on where children are, and we're keeping them indoors more and more.
Right.
And you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier how difficult it is. Lots of families are living in different types of housing now, and there isn't
Yeah.
always a green space nearby. It's really difficult if
Mhm.
you are on, one of the higher levels of an apartment building, and you have to take the elevator. So you have to get dressed for outdoors. You have to take the elevator. You then have to go to a space where there is place to move and play and be and interact. And there might not be a spot for children to dig in the soil, which in my way of thinking makes it all that much more important that early childhood education programs ensure that children are outside for long stretches of time every day, that they give them that opportunity to dig in the dirt, even if your playground is on the top of an apartment building, because
Mhm.
that's
Right.
where your childcare program is located. You should
Mm.
still have planter boxes that
Yeah.
children can see the plants growing, they can interact with them, and they can really gain so much from those various experiences.
Well, city dwellers are now, a lot of people are at least aware of, even if not personally taking part in, community gardens and things like that, right? So you can tell, like, urban areas are missing this, or, significantly lacking in, and people want to bridge that gap. People want the experiences still, and want there to be like the socializing aspect, as well as, like you said, the getting down and dirty, and like being
Mm.
outdoors, and being able to contribute as well, because there's so much value in what you're talking about. I want to pivot just slightly, because before we run out of time chatting with you, I want to bring up medication. This is another complicated kind of side of things, and I don't necessarily know what the question is, but do you have any perspectives on when we turn to medication for intervention when it comes to children? A lot of things, like a lot of conditions, are now being treated with medication, and medication seems to be, generally speaking, just like a very um, primary way of suggesting how to deal with things when you go to visit your family doctor or whatever else. Early part of the intervention includes medication, or at least suggestions of medication. So do you have any perspectives on that, um, that could maybe be in parallel with or relate to a lot of the other things that we've talked about?
Well, if you're talking about medications in order to control a child's behavior,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I do have some opinions on that. But if you're talking about medications, that we need to keep ourselves healthy because we've caught something, or
Mm-hmm.
do you know what I mean? I do believe in medication, I guess is what
Yes,
I'm trying
yes.
to say.
I think I'm
But
more curious about
sometimes,
your first one,
okay.
about children's behavior, or how we're, because we talked about this with the former guest as well, with Graham, right? Like this idea of what's meant to be normal, and how we should be presenting ourselves, etc., etc., like these boxes in society and such.
Well, and that goes back to the child as a gift and seeing the strengths of the child. I find that what adults are sometimes struggling with are children's behaviors that they find irritating, that they find
Mm-hmm.
upsetting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And what we need to realize as adults is that the child is trying to communicate something to us. The child is not trying to bother you. The
Mm.
child is not trying to control you. They're trying to get a need met. And often if we observe the child and we try and figure out why are they doing this, why do they need this, why are they doing this behavior, we can often see how we can support them in a better way. And
Right.
sometimes we'll see, oh, the head moving, it doesn't actually matter, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just,
Exactly.
it doesn't matter. Whereas sometimes other behaviors, it's actually what we've done. We haven't scheduled enough outdoor space or space and time for the children where they
Mm-hmm.
can
Yeah.
really get into their play outdoors, where they have more space, where they can be noisy,
Yep.
where they
Yep.
can move freely.
There there isn't
Yeah.
that patience, and as you say, that space alone, is so needed, not just to look at, be pretty, and say, "Oh, we've got green space." It's gotta be a playable green space. Before we run out of time, Sheila, November is Indigenous Disability Awareness Month. Why is this significant, and what does it mean to you?
Well, um, it's significant in a number of ways. One, we don't know the exact numbers, but we do know that there are more Indigenous people with disabilities than other portions of Canada. And so we're talking about a double barrier because
Yeah.
being Indigenous itself can be a barrier to success in many ways. When you look at the whole history of colonization, when you look at how people are or are not reacting to the calls for action, to the truth and reconciliation,
Mm-hmm.
there's still a lot of racism issues and things out there. The other part of that is that many Indigenous languages don't actually have a word for disability
Yes.
because
Interesting.
the point
Yes.
is to see the gift in each person, see what their strengths are, and we know that some people require more supports than others. But it's also looking at that individual. So the Cree word for autism has different connotations, right? When you think of the word autism, a lot of things will come to your mind. But if you were to translate the Cree word for autism into English, it would it wouldn't be autism, it would be he, she, they think differently.
Mm-hmm.
And can't we all use someone who thinks
Mm,
differently?
yes.
Automatically destigmatizes the way that we
Mhm.
think of people automatically with language.
Mhm.
It's such a huge side of the equation. Sheila, thank you so much for hanging out with us, for
Yes.
teaching us a ton just in this small conversation. We really appreciate you being here.
It's been my absolute pleasure. Thanks so
Thanks,
much.
Thank
Sheila.
you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, what a wealth of information. And of course, in the age of technology, where a lot of children don't know a lot more than screens and screen times, and people are just being born into it with iPads and everything else. I think that it's important to hear perspectives around holistic health and nutrition, and a lot of the outdoor time stuff that we talked about with Sheila serves a lot. So that is Sheila Grieve.
Fresh air. That was the thing we always get told, "Go out," and as a kid, I recall playing in those sands that now I'd be terrified to send a child to play in because of needles
Hmm.
and things like that.
Yeah.
Anuktatuk,
Yeah.
when I was, shooting A Taste of Nunavut, that was the one thing I learned when they said, "There is no word for disability," and that
Mm.
really made me say, "Wow." Folks, if you wanna reach out to us, check out the podcast if you can't be here for the show using your podcatcher of choice. Look for Kelly and Company, and if you would, give us a rating and review. Nisreen, we're tight on some time, but you've got some what in the world possibilities for us today.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can squeeze two articles, but if not, we have one article. In the small town of McBride, British Columbia, a deer has baffled locals after being seen wearing a zipped up, high visibility work jacket, the bright orange or bright yellow jackets. Andrea Arnold, a local reporter, spotted the deer while driving and shared pictures on social media. And the mystery of how the deer came to wear the jacket and why
Hmm.
has sparked a mixture of reactions. Some believe the jacket would protect the deer on highways, while others worry it might cause harm. Despite widespread speculation, no one has figured out why or how the jacket ended up on the deer. It's still a
Yeah.
question. And guys, this town is so small; it has fewer than 1,000 people. So
Oh,
to not know
think
how
someone
this
outside the
jacket
town did
is,
it?
I wonder if it
to
got hooked
not
on an antler and just kinda slid down, but still, it
How
would
yeah.
have to be stepped
no.
into it, right? Yeah, you're right. It would have to
You
be
think a
maybe
deer
scooped
at
up,
if given the
stepped into
choice
the well,
steps into
r
the jacket and
well, hold
decided to
it.
walk
Nisreen,
around?
how is it on? Like, is it kind of on the
Yeah,
front
actually, that's a good
up the,
question.
like,
Is
maybe
it?
'cause that
It's worn like a jacket. It's
so it
worn on the
actually is
back.
over the
Like, it's
back.
got sleeves?
It's over the
So
back.
it did.
Yeah.
It must have scooped it up or
No, it's like a
someone must have
vest,
tossed it.
Oh, it's like a
Yeah,
vest, okay.
yeah.
and it's
I was
so
gonna
Wow.
say because if
cute.
given the choice, I don't
What
think many animals would choose to get
oh
into a
gosh,
piece of
no.
clothing. They're
So
usually
the
trying to get out
there's
of pieces of
nothing
clothing.
sticking through the arms, I would imagine, Rum. Like, it can't
No.
be. Like, it would have to
Mhm,
have been
mhm.
either thrown on the back or somehow the deer picked it up in the way that it would look like at the bottom, and it just slid down its neck. Like, it had to
Oh,
be
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
so cute.
Maybe.
I've seen the picture, and I wish
Yeah.
we can. I
Oh,
Yeah, it's honestly so adorable. It's a vest, and yeah, they don't know who did it and why, but
Yeah.
I think it would protect the deer on highways. I think it's a smart idea to have
Oh,
the
yeah, because it's
deers
high
wear this.
visibility, right?
Yeah,
That's sweet.
exactly.
Yeah.
yeah, for
Like,
as
Just
long
hope
as the
it
deer kept it on.
yeah, and
yeah,
what
look,
was it? There was another one they referenced in this article, right? Another animal that recently was spotted, or was it you, Kelly? Somebody was
No, I
talking
would
about another animal being witnessed with clothing on, and it
not
was
me, no.
anyways. I don't know why I brought
Yeah,
it up. I have
yeah,
no
but I
but
details.
I
think
love
that
it.
stuff gets grabbed up. These things happen so easily, I think, more than we think they do when things we leave out
Yeah,
there
of
are found.
course.
Imagine with a backpack. Imagine if one had a backpack, you'd say, "Wow, there's that hiking deer
With all the
again."
rations?
I
Yeah, that's
I
Wow.
cute.
don't know
Yeah.
why the idea of animals wearing clothing, and even when I see dogs with like little booties, it's so
Mhm.
cute. I love it. So I
So
got
Some
cute, but
people
excited
don't
about
like
the
that.
how many
Some
of
people
them
don't like it, but
hate
I think
it?
it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, of
I don't know.
course. You
Well,
There
can't
look
was
look
like
look at
a
guide dogs and
battle.
stuff can't possibly love the boots, but they probably hate the salt worse in the
Oh,
wintertime.
come on. So many you should put that as a poll. Like or just a question out there on Reddit or something cuz I'm sure many guide dog users and service animal users have stories of their dogs kicking off boots
Oh,
and
tons.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh, yeah.
not willing to work if they have a jacket on or whatever. Yeah.
Niz,
They're
what's
not
your
fond.
last one? We'll try to squeeze it in.
So, yeah, so for nearly 9 months, John Alfred Tenniswood held the title of the world's oldest man, marking his 112th birthday. He passed away on Monday. Tenniswood was born on the 26th of August, 1912. The same year, guys, the Titanic sank. Can you just
Oh.
let that sink in?
Oh.
The
Oh, I
retired
like that.
account-
Titanic
yeah,
sank.
right?
Just let that sink in. Goodness.
I That wasn't on
Didn't
purpose.
realize it. Yeah.
I actually missed
Love
that
it.
altogether. Wow.
Right.
Good one,
Wow.
Niz.
Real good.
The retired accountant and great grandfather told the Guinness World Records when he earned the title in April, quote, "You either live long or you live short and you can't do much about it." If
Mm.
there was any secret to it, though, he said moderation was key to a healthy life. He never smoked, rarely drank, and followed no special diet apart from having fish and chips every Friday. So,
Aw.
yeah, I think that's
Battered
super
fried
nice.
fish. Well, and it's interesting because 'cause you'll hear of people who like George Burns, who smoked and smoked and smoked, lived to the ripe old age, over 100 or whatever, and you
Yep.
think about
Mhm.
what some of the people who take care of themselves. What was his name again, Nis?
It's John Alfred Tenniswood,
I love that. Tenniswood's a cool name. I'm sorry, but
right?
I often think of names and say, "Geez, that'd be a great stage name." You know, like when
I
you're in
know,
Yeah.
right?
broadcast school and you don't
Yeah,
wanna use
yeah.
your real name, so you make, say, some fake name and stuff like that for if you have to do on air, but that's a really cool
Mm.
name. Have to
Yeah,
file
Also,
that
like
away.
we're
degenerative.
always waiting for the mic drop moment on in these articles, right? Where we're waiting for the advice. Like, okay, what is it? What have you done? Like, how come
Yeah.
you've lived so
How
long? And he's
can
like,
we
I did
live?
nothing except no smoking, no drinking, and fish and chips every Friday. So now I'm thinking,
Where's
got
the
it.
magic? Where's the fountain of youth? Do you not know where that path is? No, I ran out of
Yeah.
that path. However, I have longevity. I stayed.
Mm,
Fish and chips. I just think of the
I can get
batter
on
and all that,
board.
but that's because the guy's over 112. You're sitting there thinking, well, there has to be something that maybe he would have
It's
been
bad for you.
113 if
Oh,
he hadn't
if
I
had
that's
mean,
what you
fried a
thought.
fish and
Oh
chip.
gosh.
Wow. I
yes,
know. I know.
it may be bad for you, but you gotta live life. Even
That's
though
right.
he lived
Yeah. Yeah.
112 years, right? But at the same time, you can't just limit for me. How I think of it is live a happy life rather than, very strict diets
Mm-hmm.
and
YOLO,
and
right? You only live
Look at
once.
YOLO. You
yeah,
only
that's
YOLO.
it. And
yeah.
That's what
besides,
Nisreen's trying to explain here. You're just explaining YOLO.
and the body will only do what it'll do, right? Like if
Hmm.
you take care of it, and the body is just going to be like we said, people who have smoked, who do other things, drink and live forever. And you say, how the heck does that guy live to then? And yet that athlete passed away at 52. And
I
it's
know.
just like, I don't
I
understand.
know.
It's our bodies. We're just as
It's our
defective as
bodies.
something.
But
They're
also,
either defective or effective.
Also, like when you think of moderation, we often think, okay, make sure you cut down on the bad stuff, right? Because we do too much of the bad stuff already. Like,
Hmm.
Right.
no one's going to tell me to eat more cake. But if you think of moderation, really, isn't it also make sure you do a
Or
little bit
fudgicles.
of the bad stuff? Like, if I was eating everything healthy all the time, then, like I'm missing out on my battered
But
fish and chips. Once a week is
Is it
okay.
ri isn't it, ladies, the mix? Have your it's sort of
Yeah,
like don't
balance.
eat too much, just realize you're gonna eat, don't keep something away from yourself, get yourself all worried and stressed and
Mm-hmm.
frustrated, have it when you
And then go
want to in
binge eat every
moderation.
2 weeks.
And
Yeah,
that's what
exactly.
Tennis said in the article. He also said that having too much of anything, whether it's healthy stuff or junk food or whatever it may be, having too much of anything is bad for you. Just note that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like
Wow.
when people say, "Oh, drink lots of water," but you can't drink that much water.
Don't drown in it.
Also bad
Yeah.
for you.
You're right.
So yeah, I mean, you could do the best that you can do. Just live life. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
You ever
that's
hear
it.
that, the water's bad for you thing?
I've
I
heard
mean,
that.
wasn't there that woman who drank too much water for the water drinking competition and died?
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I
That's
think
what I've heard.
I don't wanna say she choked her, I'm not sure of the
Oh.
circumstances there, what happened,
Oh, I
but
actually thought it was just too much water.
well, that's what they say, right? That you can have too much water in one's body, and I mean, like you said, Nisreen, you could have too much of anything. I'm sure if you worked hard enough at it in your body, but it is one of those things that such a when we heard that, people, no, how is that possible when we've been told for
Yeah.
years, drink this much water, your body's made out of so much water. How can you add to it? Like what? Drink enough to explode? Okay, that's one thing, but it's always been one of those funny things to hear about. And man, I don't want to know the story because I used to love my water so much that when I heard that, I started
Yeah.
to get worried. And of course,
All you
that
got to
just
do
makes you
is honestly
observant.
back to this moderation stuff is make sure you check out every single study ever because at one point or another every study is contradicted by another study. So if you think you're
That's
doing
right.
too much of
Absolutely.
something, just
And
tune
in
in
5
tomorrow
years,
and they'll
it'll
tell
be
you not
again.
to do it anymore. Yeah.
That's right. Well, let's
It's the
look at the coffee
cycle of
thing.
life.
Coffee's so bad for you, and we know stomach, okay, be careful. But coffee in general, hey, 3 or 4 cups, not bad for you. These are the good reasons. And then
Hmm.
next week, oh, 3 or 4 cups, these are the bad reasons. Ladies, have a good day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Cheers.
See ya.
Email us at kellyco@ami.ca and call us at 1-866-509-4545. We love to hear from you. On the program tomorrow, art critic Amy Manti is back, and so is chef Mary Mamalady. Fedora's off to you. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly and Company. Follow us on all social media and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.